Hello and welcome to Focus, a program produced by the Department of Disaster Management, DDM. I'm your host, Fiona Alexander Smith, DDM's Information and Education Manager. In this edition, we'll focus on traffic safety and why it is important to adhere to the rules and regulations that have been created to keep us safe on the island's roads. Traffic safety speaks to the need for motorists and their passengers, pedestrians and cyclists to operate in such a way that they do not predispose themselves and others to harm. Stay tuned to this channel because after this break, we will hear from representatives of the Road Policing Unit of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force.
The Department of Disaster Management is located at number 3 Whaling Road, McNamara, Tortola. Our mission is to protect lives and maintain a resilient, stable economy and society by fostering comprehensive disaster management and climate change adaptation as a way of life. For all your disaster management needs, contact the Department of Disaster Management at 468-4200 to speak with one of our knowledgeable staff. That's 468-4200. Or you can visit our website at www.bviddm.com. We're also on Facebook and you can follow us on Twitter. The Department of Disaster Management, your life-saving connection.
Welcome back to Focus. We are talking about traffic safety. Joining me now is Inspector in the Road Policing Unit of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Dariel Robinson, and Sergeant Kenneth Arthur. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure having you here. Now, first, let's start with you telling us about the 2015 traffic statistics. Are they alarming?
The 2015 traffic statistics are not alarming. They're basically normal. For 2015, we had 1,177 road traffic collisions. 309 persons were reported for traffic offenses, and we issued 1,825 tickets for traffic violations.
Mm-hmm. Right, you said they're normal, but of course you'd want to still get those figures down.
Yes.
Right. What are the major issues and concerns for the policing unit, road policing unit here in the BVI?
The major concern for the road policing unit are the drivers are not complying with the rules of the road. We find drivers running the red lights, not stopping at the stop sign, going through no entry signs, failing to comply with the prohibition of no left turn and no right turn. And we also find that drivers follow the other vehicle too closely and it's causing accidents. Mm-hmm. And we also have the scooter riders that are riding in and out of traffic.
Right.
And we also have them that ride in the center of the lane, which is not safe. And it's creating a havoc on the streets.
Would the unit be doing anything in particular this year to address some of those issues?
We have a calendar. We target a specific offense. Mm-hmm. And in the calendar, we have 2 months that we specialize for scooters.
Okay. Since the start of 2016, how many road and traffic accidents and offenses have been committed, and how does it compare to 2015?
Well, at the start of 2016, we have seen 420 accidents since January to April 28, because I cut the stats off there. And 112 persons were reported already for the year for traffic offenses. And we have issued 425 tickets. Mm-hmm. The statistics for the accidents are actually up. But we have seen an increase of 26 accidents for these over last year. And we have seen a decrease in the amount of persons reported since last year. It has dropped to 62.
Okay.
And the tickets we have seen a decrease in the person that was issued tickets because the tickets has dropped to 95. It's up by 95 compared to last year.
Right. So there are some areas where you're seeing increases, but then others where there are decreases when you compare it to 2015.
Yeah, the enforcement side is decreasing, but the accident side are increasing.
Right. Did you mention the number of fatalities for this period this year as compared to last year?
The fatalities for last year, we only had 2.
Okay.
But for the period last year, compared to previous year, it's different. The period this year, we have 2 fatalities. Last year around this time, so we had none.
Well, okay. So definitely more needs to be done to really get persons to pay attention on the road and adhere to the traffic laws, essentially.
Yes.
Right. Now, in terms of the traffic offenses, which offense is most worrying for the road policing unit based on how frequently they are committed or it is committed?
The offense that is most troubling to us is the persons not wearing their seat belts. That figure has skyrocketed. In 2015, we had 877 persons that were issued tickets for that offense. And for this year, we already issued 321 tickets for that offense, and we're not even halfway through the year.
Why do you think persons are not complying with the use of seat belts?
I'm not sure. I think that they figure that it's not important. Mm-hmm. But not wearing your seat belt is a serious thing because, one, if you're not wearing your seat belt, you're twice likely to die in an accident. Mm-hmm. And if you wear your seat belt properly, when you get into an accident, it will hold you back. It will restrain you from going forward. So you won't hit the windshield or you won't flare the vehicle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's, of course, something that persons need to really understand.
Yes.
Of course, there's some persons who might be concerned that in some vehicular accidents, the seat belt could trap them. Because
Right.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, that's...
How do we go about dispelling? I wouldn't want to say a myth because it does happen in some cases. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, of course.
Right. So, but how do we get persons to understand that the benefits of wearing a seatbelt outweighs the disadvantages?
Yes, sometimes what we do is to use statistics in terms of to show people in other accidents where we believe that these lives were saved. Based on the fact that the passenger driver was wearing a seatbelt.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right, and that would, of course, send the message, we
Right.
hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Now, in terms of all these issues that we're having, and you mentioned some of them, not wearing your seatbelt, texting and driving, running the stoplight, what approach or how would the policing unit get persons to understand the serious implications of those actions?
Well, this year we intend to do some educational programs around that area, so that we feel that if the drivers are educated, then they will comply with the law.
Yeah.
And for those that don't comply, we intend to prosecute them.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense because once they see that persons are actually being prosecuted, it sends a strong message from your department that you know it's a no tolerance approach, so to speak. Yes. Right. Now, we're going to take a commercial break and we're going to bring you a message which reinforces what we've been speaking about here on the Traffic and Road Safety Focus program.
This is a message to motorists and pedestrians. Pedestrians have the right of way at crosswalks. When arriving at any crosswalk, drivers should reduce their speed and be on the lookout for pedestrians. Drivers should stop at the 5-foot marker in front of each crosswalk when there is a pedestrian crossing. Pedestrians should only cross when both lanes of traffic have stopped. Drivers should only proceed when the pedestrian is safely off the pedestrian crossing. Pedestrians should stop at the entrance to the crosswalk before crossing and look both ways. Only proceed when both lanes of traffic have stopped. Pedestrians should avoid using cellular phones or any other distracting devices while crossing. Once on the crosswalk, pedestrians should complete the cross. Never should a pedestrian turn back in the middle of the crossing. Pedestrians should walk swiftly and purposefully so that drivers are aware of the intentions. This is a message from the Traffic Investigation Unit, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force.
Welcome back to Focus. We're speaking about motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists being safe while on the road. I have with me Inspector Robinson and Sergeant Arthur of the Road Policing Unit of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. Now, as we continue our discussion, earlier we spoke about scooters, and the number of persons seen on scooters without wearing a helmet is, of course, worrying. What is your advice to these bikers?
My advice personally is to let bikers know that they should have the correct documents, first of all, in terms of ownership, proof of purchase, insurance. Mm-hmm. These are very important. Second, but I think the most important thing in what we have seen so far is we have riders who are going around without wearing helmets. Mm-hmm. And we are not only talking about a helmet, but one that is specifically designed for that purpose. And those helmets should be checked periodically for cracks, wear and tear, and replaced in the event of an accident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you do see scooter riders or bikers without a helmet, can you pull them over and speak to them? What can you do in that regard?
Yes, of course, we'll pull them over. We will speak with them, and some will comply. But one of the things that we try to avoid is to go chasing after them, because we do not want to put lives at risk. Mm-hmm. The public, the rider, and even the police officer. We just do not want that to happen at all.
Right, that makes sense. But the number on the plate, you would take that and probably do a search and follow up with the individual.
Right.
Yeah.
And remember I mentioned about having the correct documents.
Yes.
Documentation.
Right.
Some of the times we trace them at the DMV, mm-hmm. and it's a whole line of owners.
Okay, I understand. Now, traffic safety, of course, also applies to pedestrians, and there are pedestrian crossings at several locations, but there seems to be a disconnect between the pedestrian and the motorist as to who has the right of way on a pedestrian crossing. Please just briefly explain how to appropriately use the pedestrian crossing.
Right. I'd like to look at two words that you used, the right of way. Mm-hmm. When it comes to safety, the right of way is a distant second place. So we promote safety. So in the event of, we have had cases where motorists will just drive because they feel that they have the right of way, mm-hmm. or a pedestrian may come to a cross and just walk across because they believe that they do have a right of way. But there ought to be a relationship between the driver and the pedestrian. So the first thing that person should do is to come to the edge of the road, remember safety, stop, and then allow traffic approaching on both ends to stop. Mm-hmm. Ensure that the traffic stops completely.
Yeah.
And then cross as quickly as possible.
Right. Another area of concern is how persons use the lanes going around a roundabout, and especially that roundabout close to the Road Town Police Station. There seems to be some issues there. The roundabout that's wrapped around the tree there, well, some people refer to it as a roundabout, but there's a tree there and you have to go around it. Explain to us the rules as it relates to drivers going around these locations.
Right, the rules of the road in respect of the roundabout in the Road Town next to Bobby's. Let me say, persons approaching the roundabout should always remember to give way to traffic on the right. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming from the Castle Street, mm-hmm. you're driving on the Waterfront Drive from the direction of Side Department Store, or on Fleming Street from the direction of Right Way, or even, let me say, from the direction of the festival grounds. On approaching the roundabout, you should give way to traffic on your right, especially those traffic that have already entered the roundabout. Mm-hmm. So the key here is to give way to traffic on your right.
Okay, all right, and that's clear.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of the tree outside the Rotong Police Station, we have Pickering Street running from the courthouse to the tambourine tree in the area of Adamson, the dental place. And then we have Botanic Station that is coming from, it's coming from the direction of Law Estate, and also Station Avenue running from the direction of the community center. Both roads, that is Station Avenue, as I mentioned, and the Botanic Station roads are controlled by a stop sign. So we ask persons to stop at the stop sign, and allow persons that are already on Pickering Street to pass, simply as that. And then they could then make their turn right or left, and that's how it works.
Okay. I want to go back to speaking about seatbelts, but in relations to children in this case. We know that we should buckle up, and we should, of course, buckle up our children. So tell us, from what age should children be in a car seat, buckled in? And what age can they ride in the seat, and in what area of the vehicle?
Right. A child under the age of 5 should always be buckled in a safety harness, or a child seat as we normally call it. So if that child is under the age of 5, then they should be buckled in a specific seat and behind the passenger. Right? And if that child is over the age of 5, then he or she should be buckled in. What we have seen in some cases where persons are driving with their child or children seated in between both front seats, and that is extremely dangerous. In the event of an emergency where the brakes has to be applied, then definitely that child could become a projectile. So we want to prevent that. So the safest place is behind the passenger or even the drivers, so that in the event of that, they could be cushioned by one of the seats.
Right. And I've also seen situations where children are standing in the vehicles in between the seats there, and hands out of the car or sitting on someone's lap. The danger of this practice is of course obvious, but just reinforce the consequences of doing this.
Well, apart from the tragic loss of life or serious injuries, we, of course, will issue a penalty ticket to that driver, that parent who refused to buckle their child in, so to speak.
So just the ticket at this point?
Yes, they will be ticketed.
Okay.
But as I a ticket is minor compared to, loss of life. So.
Certainly. Another issue which has become somewhat of a talking point on social media is the inconsiderate parking of motorists in parking lots. You'd have people blocking others in public venues, in road town, etc. What is being done or will be done to clamp down on this practice?
Well, we have been, of course, issuing tickets for these parking violations, but they are sorting legislations that have to be looked into in order to pursue this offense. So we are kind of tied. Our hands are tied at this moment. In that way.
Yeah. Okay. But of course, at the end of the day, it's up to the drivers to be considerate of others and realize that someone might very well have an emergency situation and need to get out quickly. And if you block that person in, you'd only add to the situation, so to speak. As we wrap up our discussion, any final comments any of you would want to add?
Well, I'll definitely take this opportunity to appeal to the general public to help us, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, the road policing unit, to curb the number of offenses, traffic accidents that have occurred in our territory. And we are depending on stakeholders to help us. We simply cannot do it alone, and we just cannot do enforcement. And there are other things that, and even if we do enforcement, we do education, we do all of those things, right? Without the general public, without stakeholders, we are still going to have traffic accidents, injuries, and unfortunately death.
Yeah. Inspector Robinson and Sergeant Arthur, thank you both so much for joining me on Focus today, and I really hope that the audience would really appreciate the messages that you're sending today and would have a better understanding as to why they need to adhere to the rules of the road, so to speak. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this break.
This is a message to motorists and pedestrians. Pedestrians have the right of way at crosswalks. When arriving at any crosswalk, drivers should reduce their speed and be on the lookout for pedestrians. Drivers should stop at the 5-foot marker in front of each crosswalk when there is a pedestrian crossing. Pedestrians should only cross when both lanes of traffic have stopped. Drivers should only proceed when the pedestrian is safely off the pedestrian crossing. Pedestrians should stop at the entrance to the crosswalk before crossing and look both ways. Only proceed when both lanes of traffic have stopped. Pedestrians should avoid using cellular phones or any other distracting devices while crossing. Once on the crosswalk, pedestrians should complete the cross. Never should a pedestrian turn back in the middle of the crossing. Pedestrians should walk swiftly and purposefully so that drivers are aware of the intentions. This is a message from the Traffic Investigation Unit, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Focus. I am Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the Department for Disaster Management, reminding you to make safety a priority. Join me next time for another edition on CBN Television and on 90.9 FM.